Hello everyone. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about the power of rubrics and how, in fact, you can use a rubric to objectively assess a student's subjective performance. But before I jump into the topic, let us first look at how a simple grid gets converted into a fabulously useful assessment rubric. So let's start with a question. What is a grid? A grid is simply a table with rows and columns, and as you can see on the right hand side, here we have a 7 by 5 table, and the blue highlight shows the row and the green highlight indicates the column. Next, we are going to be talking about how a simple grid transforms itself into a powerful rubric. All we need to do is add a few ingredients. Let us have a look at the list of ingredients. The first ingredient that can convert a simple grid into a rubric is the criteria or aspects of performance we're going to assess. Next, we need to assign some levels to these criteria. For example, a beginner's level, intermediate level, or advanced. These levels in turn have to be quantified with some values. Let's take percentage of marks as values. And lastly, all the different criteria and levels have to be described in words in a qualitative way, which gives us the descriptors. Now here is the anatomy of a rubric. As you can see, it is a 4 by 3 grid, and in the first column, you can see the different criteria. Now suppose I want to make this rubric on how to assess a speech performance. I can have content here with a 50% weightage as the most important criteria, the delivery style as the second most important criteria with 35% weightage, and body language with 15% weightage. Next, look at the different levels as most proficient, proficient, semi-proficient, and least proficient. Most proficient students can score anything between 90 to 100%, proficient students between 80 to 89, and so on and so forth. These are the values assigned to the different levels. Finally, if you have qualitative description in words in the little boxes, you have your descriptors. Let's look at the next slide. Now here is a little quiz for you. You have to tell me which of these two images is a grid and which one is a rubric. I'm sure it is easy for you to identify that the first one is a grid because there are no descriptions within the little boxes, whereas the second image is a rubric because it has all the different ingredients that are required. For example, it has the different criteria, it has the different levels, it has the values assigned to each level, and it also has the descriptions. Therefore, this is a good example of a rubric, and in this case, this is an example of a rubric to assess students on group discussions. Moving on to the next slide, let us see how to use a descriptor. Now here, on the right hand side, you can see 4 images of fruits. Now we all know all of these are citrus fruits, but they are different, Some are lemons, some are limes, some are oranges, and some grapefruits. Our students are also quite similar in many ways, and yet they have individual differences. The important thing for us teachers is to be able to identify a student's capabilities and then match them to the correct descriptor that is given. So, looking at the green color, the round shape and size, I can say that okay, this seems to match with the description and the extra information about the more acidic taste and flavor and narrow down our choice. Now, matching and eliminating, we arrive at the correct description that fits from all aspects. You would notice that I've removed the words like oranges, sweet limes from the descriptors to ensure you match by reading only. Now let us go to the central focus of today's session. What is CEFR and why is it important to use the CEFR rubric? To start off with, a simple definition. It is the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, known as CEFR in short. It is a standardized guideline used to describe the proficiency levels of language learners. Now, this is mostly used for summative assessments in the form of a test or exam. Also, most importantly, the CFR is applicable to all Indo-European languages because it is a standard framework and can be used to assess any language. The CFR refuses to assign marks to candidates. Instead, they award levels. Levels, like grades, talk about the range and not a specific number, unlike a lot of other international rubrics. The reason being, language skills are subjective and are subject to multiple effective filters. For example, if I'm sick on the day of the test, I might not perform well. However, the marks I acquire does not indicate my true proficiency level. Therefore, levels or ranges are better indicators of proficiency. A1 and A2 talk about basic uses of a language. B1 and B2 talk about the intermediate level users. C1 and C2 talk about the advanced users. This is the official version of the global CFR levels and their descriptors. As you can see, you have a basic user here, and you have the independent user, and you have the proficient user. Moving to the next slide, CEFR also gives you a descriptor for students to do a self-assessment. This makes the system more transparent, as in, the student can assess for themselves where they fit in. In fact, we as teachers can ask the students to assess us using the same rubric. If you are assessed correctly, you will be confident about your level no matter where in the world you are stationed. That is the magic of using a standardized rubric. At this point, you might want to note that you can be a C1 in speaking. However, in writing, you can be a B2. So, it is not necessary that you belong to the same level in all the four subskills. Next, we have the CEFR speaking descriptors. Now, here it is a little difficult to read as the PDF is too big and the text is too fine. So, what I've done is I have zoomed in for a better look at the descriptors. And here you can see that I have just cropped it to C1 and C2 levels. You can see that we assess learners under the criteria of range, which talks about the lexical range or the vocabulary, accuracy, which talks about grammatical accuracy, fluency is how smoothly and naturally people talk and how if they can continue at length. Interaction talks about the ease with which we interact with people, and coherence talks about the overall organization and connectedness of our speech, whether people can easily follow what we are saying. Despite understanding the drawbacks of assessing students' performance in terms of marks, we are left with little choice. So here comes the difficult part, converting the CEFR levels to marks. So here is what I have done. I went to the official Cambridge website and found the equivalence chart of the CEFR levels and the IELTS bands. As IELTS is the most popular English proficiency test in the whole world and they give a numeric score, I thought it is best suited for our purpose. You will notice that A1 and A2 is blank as IELTS officially refuses to draw any parallel with A1 and A2. So, what I have done is, I have used the statistical method called range adjustment to make it a more continuous band. You will notice that here there is a gap of 0.5 between 8 and 8.5. So to account for that, I've just made it a more continuous band. Then I converted the scores into percentage and then calculated the marks out of 15, as this is the total marks on which Mumbai University teachers have to rate their students for their internal oral exams. Okay, now please note, if you are between 14 and 15, you are C2 level. At a minimum, one expects students to be at a 6 on 15. So if students are barely managing to pass, they are at A2. But basically, we want our students to be somewhere between 6.5 and above to appear for interviews and to bag a good job. For more content on related topics, please visit my channel, Tall Talks from a Short Lady. You will find the PDF of the different band descriptors in the description box below. With that, I'll say thank you and bye.